And joining us here on Fox26Houston.com is Dr. Hassan Gokul to talk with us about the healthcare side of fasting during Ramadan. Dr. Gokul, thank you for taking the time to speak with me, and Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
So, fasting during Ramadan is obligatory for all Muslims, but at what age is it recommended people typically start fasting?
Most kids start fasting around the age of 10 as part of the obligatory requirement. Although many of them start much earlier than that, sometimes start with a half day or half a day with a skipped lunch or something like that. But
Mhm.
typically speaking, from 10, give or take, onwards.
And how is fasting different during Ramadan different from intermittent fasting, which is sort of become like a mainstream diet?
Yeah, it's become a lot more popular. Uh, Ramadan fasting is, in fact, much more difficult. And the reason why it's more difficult is because you're talking about not eating or drinking anything from sunup to sundown. So with intermittent fasting, you can kind of say, all right, you have, 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, you get the shift. In between, you can drink water, you can drink things like coffee and drinks like that don't have calories in them. But here, you're not having anything from sun up to sundown. And depending on the area of the country you live in, that can be a really long time, can be up to 18 hours like that. So it is truly much harder, but there's a second aspect of it too. There are other things you can't do during that time, and that includes smoking. There's uh, intimate relations that you have to avoid during that period of time. There's requirements about controlling your anger. And, if you think about it, if you've ever been hangry before, you know how easy it
Yep.
is to just get all ticked off about anything. And those are some of the things you're supposed to control. So it's more than just the eating and drinking aspect.
Yeah. Well, and are there any health benefits to fasting though? In other words, can people actually lose weight?
That depends what you want to do. It depends, and many people do take advantage of that and do lose weight and finding themselves at the end of the month to be lighter and feeling better. But more often than not, people just sort of pig out at the end of the night and make up for more than the calories than they lost during the daytime. So it kind of is dependent on what you want to accomplish out of it. All in all, intermittent fasting over time has been shown to be beneficial, and in fact, you do get that benefit from this should you choose to do it right way and not go in excess afterwards.
Hmm. Well, and are there any health risks that come from fasting?
Well, not everybody's the same. People have tolerances that are different. People have underlying illnesses that need to be considered. The extremes of age, for example, someone is brittle with diabetes or has a requirement to take medications during the daytime for which you can't fast. Those people are exempted. The main problem that we tend to see among people who are otherwise healthy but fast is things that are relatively transient. So we'll see people who get dehydrated because they're not used to their body being depleted of water during the daytime. And that usually happens at the beginning of the month. As the month wears on, it pretty much seems to go away. And you have other things, including abdominal discomfort from constipation, because again, of not eating and drinking on a regular basis like your body is used to, etc. But generally speaking, unless there's an underlying condition that prevents you from being able to do it, there are pretty limited risks like that.
Okay. Well, and what are some of the example? You mentioned it, but what are some more examples of things that would make someone exempt from fasting?
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, the fasting, at least for Ramadan fasting, is not meant as a hardship. It's supposed to be a training, a spiritual and physical training endeavor.
Mhm.
So those who would be considered hardship would be elderly. If you are pregnant, you're not supposed to fast. And we know that fasting and depleting fluid and calories during pregnancy is harmful to the fetus. So nobody really wants that's not a requirement. So a lot of the common sense type things, those are the people who are not supposed to fast. The young, obviously, we talked about, the one other exception is also during a menstruation, also because it kind of dehydrates you anyway to begin with, and to fast on top of that would be detrimental. So those type of scenarios, yeah, there's no obligation.
Well, and I've heard stories of people, athletes, and it's possibly rumored because I don't know if it's properly sourced, but uh, like I think I heard somewhere Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, they would fast even while they played games. Would you advise that, or even exercise while fasting?
Boy, there are supermen out there, no doubt, and and these guys would certainly be qualified if they can go through a game as intense as they do while still fasting. Look, at the end of the day, the issue comes down to being able to make a resolve and stick with it without doing any harm to your body. So if you can go ahead and uh, push it on, and at the end of the fast, drink up, rehydrate, and get yourself back to normal without doing any damage, sure, why not? It's not easy. Having been through it as a kid, having to go through gym, and so many kids actually fasting while doing a daily gym or doing stuff like that, they'll tell you, it's not easy. But you know what? The best part of all of this is, as it gets closer to the end of the month of doing it, you feel like Superman because you feel like you can do anything, because that what you thought you couldn't do in the beginning, now you can do in a heartbeat.
It's true. What sort of advice would you share with non-Muslims who want to participate in fasting? And this doesn't have to necessarily be medical advice.
Well, this is actually not uncommon. Participating in fasting as a sort of sense of communal event is not uncommon. They have iftars where, or a breaking of the fast, opening the fast, where everyone come in and they had this, fast with as a group together, just kind of feel what it feels like, or to experience the process and see the difficulties and so on and so forth. Um, there's two aspects, right? One is the food and withholding, and that part, because of recent diet fads and stuff, we've come to recognize, and people gotten a little bit used to it. But the part B is the self-control part of it on everything else, right? Being able to do the right thing and not getting angry at anybody because you're just depleted of calories or whatever. Those things are hard to do it, but once you do it, it is incredibly, incredibly rewarding at the end. So if anyone wants to try it out, and get a buddy who's already doing it and kind of go through the process for a day and see what it feels like, and you might be surprised.
Yeah, just try not to get hangry.
Try not to get hangry, right?
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we conclude?
Well, I think the idea of fasting sounds scary. 30 days of not eating or drinking anything. Wow, but the reality is it goes by a lot easier. Even for somebody who does it regularly, approaching it feels daunting. But once you start it, and then you're on a roll and you feel you can do anything, it's it's a self-empowering mechanism that allows you to realize that a lot of the restrictions that we put on ourselves are pretty artificial, that our bodies and minds are capable of overcoming so much more. And a little bit of practice and a little bit of trying through a month of fasting will really help break through that.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it there then. Dr. Hassan Gokul, thank you for sharing your insight with us. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
My pleasure. Thank you.